All right, I think we are live. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3. Hopefully, this is coming through, and hopefully, you can hear and see me. Excuse me. There we go. Clear my throat. All right, just making sure everything is up and running. Welcome to the Total Fitness Bodybuilding video chat. My name is Lee Hayward, your muscle building coach, and today, as always, we're going to be doing a live Q&A, answering any questions or topics that you may have when it comes to building muscle, losing fat, any specific challenges that you're dealing with when it comes to your workouts or your nutrition program. Feel free to type those questions and topics of discussion into our chat window, and I'll do the best that I can to help you out over the course of our chat today. So it seems to be coming through loud and clear. I think it is. If you can hear me, if you can see me, please type into the video chat and just let me know. Just give me a loud and clear. And if you're a regular to the chat, please let me know by typing in the letter R into the chat. Let me know the regulars. And if you're brand new, type the letter N to let me know that you're new to the video chat. It's always nice to have new people joining in, because that's what it's all about growing the community and helping more people to improve their health and fitness. So let's see. We've got Dan joining in. Welcome, Dan. Dan's a regular to the chat. We have Prasad, I think it is. Prasad, I'm probably mispronouncing your name, but welcome. AJ is joining in. GS93. We have Bill, Gabriel. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, so some questions coming through. And again, the way this works is anything that you want to discuss or any specific topics, like pretty much anything goes within reason, as far as questions. If I can help you, I'll let you know. If I have any insights to share on the particular topics or questions, I'll certainly share them. And if I don't know, I'll let you know. I don't claim to know it all, right? Even though I've been involved with the fitness industry for a long time, I've been working out myself since 1990s when I started. So, quite a while, right? Even though I've been doing it for a fairly long time and I've helped a lot of people along the way, I don't claim to have all the answers. I'm never so closed-minded to think that I know it all. Because as soon as you think, oh, I know it all, that's like when the learning shuts off. But if you always approach it with an open mind, that there's always another level, there's always an area where you can improve, there's always something you can get better at. If you always approach it with that beginner's mind and trying to improve and better yourself, then it's literally a nonstop, constant, never-ending improving process. And that's what I strive to achieve. And that's what I enjoy. So, like I say, I'll do the best I can to help you out over the course of our chat today. But if there's something that I don't know, then I'll be totally transparent and let you know that I don't know. And I'll try my best to point you in the right direction to somebody who can help you. Because I do have a large network in the fitness industry from doing this for over the past 30 years. I got a lot of connections and people that I could probably refer you to if needed, if I can't help you. So let's see what we got here. All right, seems more people jumping onto the video chat. And this is a long weekend for us here in Canada. I'm not sure. I don't think it is in the United States, and I'm not sure about the rest of the world, but here in Canada, this is a long weekend. This is the Victoria Day weekend here. So I know a lot of folks are heading out of town this weekend this is usually the start of the camping season, right? I'm not going camping this weekend, but I am going to be getting outside and enjoying it. All right, I'm going to jump right in. I think we got enough people jumping on to make this live chat a go. All right, and some questions coming through. So here we go. AJ is asking, he says, Lee, hello, I hope you're doing well, and I certainly am. He says, I've just completed a 43-hour water fast. Have you ever tried this? What are your thoughts generally with regards to water fasts for 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, etc.? Great question. I do have some experience with fasting and water fasting specifically. And just to clarify it for anyone who's not sure what a water fast is, it's basically you're consuming no food, no calories, but you're allowed to drink water and 0-calorie drink, in terms of like some people will have like black coffee or black tea or something like that during their fast, but nothing that contains any calories. So 0 calories, but you're allowed to consume liquids. And I have done this in the past. I've got a bit of experience with this because for a while, this was, oh my goodness, back in 2011 when I was getting ready for the Atlantic Canadian Bodybuilding Championships. I had a goal that year that I wanted to get as ripped as I've ever been for competition. And up until that point, I certainly had achieved that. So I really dieted down and gotten ripped. And one of the strategies I was using for about the last 8 weeks before the contest is 1 day a week, I would do a 24-hour plus water fast. So basically from when I went to bed on Sunday evening, I wouldn't eat again until Tuesday morning. So it's probably even technically like a 36-hour water fast or whatever, but it was basically, I would go a full day without eating. And I mean, did it work? Well, there was a lot of things. Like, I mean, there was a lot of things going on. I mean, obviously I was training, I was doing the cardio, I was following a clean nutrition plan all along, but that was certainly something that I did in addition to try and just tap into burning that stubborn body fat. And I think it helped, but I also think it caused me to sacrifice some lean muscle along the way, because when you're getting ready in a competition like that, and you're already in a depleted state, prolonging fasting just, I mean, yeah, of course you are going to tap into burning body fat, but I also feel that there was some muscle loss there as well. But again, I do have some experience with it. I've also done some other longer term fasts, and the longest fast that I ever did was 4 days. I went 4 days without consuming any calories. And surprisingly, it's not as crazy hard as it sounds. The first day is torture. The first day, it is. Like, first day, you're going to feel hungry, and especially if you've never done it before. Day 2, not so bad. And then it actually gets easier. By day 3, it's like, yeah, eating, I could take it or leave it. Like, it's almost like I want to eat, but I'm not physically hungry anymore. It's like your body is totally into that fat burning ketosis type of mode, if you will, and you're just burning up your own natural energy reserves. And I honestly, like, after day 3, there was no hunger at all. And on day 4, when I finally went day 4, and then on the 5th day is when I started eating again. It wasn't like I was hungry or starving or anything like that. It was just like, okay, that's long enough. I haven't eaten anything for 4 days. You know, it actually gets easier the longer you do it, which is kind of strange, but you do feel weird in a way. I mean, going through that whole process, because, you know, your electrolytes are out of whack and everything else. And to be totally honest, now, when I was going through that, I was consuming sodium. So I would have salt and water. I know it's not the most pleasant, but that's what I would do to avoid cramping, because I found if I didn't have anything, no electrolytes, then I would sometimes cramp up. So I found that consuming some salt helped the whole fasting process and just staying hydrated. But yeah, I have done it. And I mean, you can go on Google and start searching the benefits of fasting. And the whole idea behind it is, there's not only is it tapping into burning body fat, but it's supposed to help, you know, with the whole body recovery process. I mean, you're giving your digestive system a break. You know, you're just allow things to heal from a digestive point of view. So if you have any intolerances or gut issues or something, like, taking a little mini break from eating is actually a good way to help correct some of that stuff. What is it? Autophagy. That's what the word I'm looking for. That's another one where your body is breaking down a lot of the old dead cells and stuff, old proteins and stuff that's in the body. It just kind of breaks that down and clears the gunk out of the system, so to speak. So, you know, there are some benefits to it, and it's not that I would discourage it or anything like that, but I don't think it's a sustainable way to achieve long-term weight loss or anything like that. If people are doing it from a weight loss point of view, it's kind of like that Band-Aid solution, because it's a temporary quick fix. And the thing about temporary quick fixes is it only lasts as long as the quick fix lasts. So in the case of following a fasting protocol, if that is your weight loss strategy, well, are you going to fast the rest of your life? Right? Or repeatedly keep going through fasts the rest of your life? If not, then the results are only temporary. So whenever I'm looking for like long-term sustainable solutions, I always look for what's something that you can enjoy, sustain, and maintain as a lifestyle. And fasting is kind of like just that temporary quick fix Band-Aid solution. So it's something, I mean, if you want to incorporate it from time to time for the reasons, and again, you can go on Google and search it, and there's a gazillion videos and stuff like that. People advocate it and stuff like that. I have done it. I've seen some benefits from it, but personally, I I wouldn't do it. I mean, I'm not saying never, but I have no intentions of ever going on that type of prolonged fasting protocol ever again. It was kind of like a self-experiment when I did it to see what, how the body responds and everything else. And it's a great learning tool to teach you that, you're not going to die if you go a day without eating. You're not going to shrivel up, right? You're not going to lose all your muscle mass if you go a day without eating or a few hours without eating or something like that. I mean, the body's a lot more resilient than we give it credit for. So it's great from an educational point of view to teach you how your body responds and how it deals with hunger and all that kind of stuff. But from a practical point of view, it's not something that I want to partake in as a long-term habit. Anyway, like we could go on and on about this because there's so much to talk about, but I'm just going to move on because that's one question of many. As you know, when I get into these questions, I go deep. Like I'm not just a yes or no type of guy, right? I like to share my experiences and thoughts, and hopefully, if you're watching this, you're enjoying that. Because I've watched some people do similar type of Q&A and questions before, and people would ask a question to the whoever's hosting the show, and it's just yes, no, yep. Right. I mean, it's just like quick little one-liners. I'm like, what kind of value is that giving anybody? I mean, I don't know. I'm going to elaborate on it. Anyway, moving on. Gabriel saying, Lee, what is your opinion on hit with one work and one backup set on a push-pull leg split? What's your opinion on high-intensity training with one work and one working set, I'm assuming, and one back up set or back off set on a push-pull leg split? All right. First off, high intensity training works. Absolutely. High volume training works. Absolutely. Because if you look around, you're going to see people who've followed high intensity training, made great gains. You're going to see guys who've done high volume training, make great gains, and every other variation and hybrid model of those two combinations. And for those who are not really understanding what I'm talking about here, when someone says high intensity training, they usually mean very few sets. In the case of Gabriel's thing here, it's like one all out set to failure. So you do your warm up sets, you progressively have your warm up sets, but one working set where you just empty the tank. And then in his case, he's saying doing a back off set after that. So maybe lighten up the weight and do some higher reps to kind of pump the muscle afterwards. Because with high intensity training, when you just do one set, you're not getting a lot of blood volume or much of a pump from the training, but you are getting a lot of high intensity stimulus just from that one set where you empty the tank. Like whatever you got, let it all hang out. Go for it. Like drain the tank, if you will. I have utilized that myself, and it certainly can work, but there are some drawbacks from it. And one of the biggest drawbacks with high intensity training, there's a lot of risk of injury because you're trying to get as much as you can in that one set and you're pushing your absolute limits. Now, don't get me wrong. Some days you feel strong and you can do it, but then other days, if you don't have the same level of strength or intensity, or maybe you got some aches or pains or whatever, it kind of opens up the door for injuries, where I'm getting at. And I've hurt myself doing high intensity training. And what I find is kind of like a hybrid of that and more volume training. Now, the volume is like, 20 plus sets per body part, which is kind of like on the other end of the extreme. I like to do multiple sets of an exercise, maybe in the range of 2 to 3 working sets of an exercise. And I find that way you can kind of space out the workload and actually get more total volume, more total muscle stimulation without having to push the pedal to the limit for that one all out set and potentially risk injury. So instead of, like, let's say I'm doing bench press, instead of like grinding out to absolute failure, I'd rather do 2 or 3 sets, maybe stopping at failure or even a rep shy of failure. So I'm still training hard, but I'm not pushing the absolute, like last rep is a grinder and you got to get a spotter to help you and all that. Because once you get into those grinder reps where you're truly pushing to the point where like, your max effort and like the weight is not budging, like in the case of a bench press or the case of a squat or something like that, and you're struggling to the point where you need a spotter to help you, you're walking a tightrope of injury. Because you're maximizing muscle stimulation, no doubt. I mean, you're exerting 100% effort, but if something goes wrong, like you tweak yourself in a certain way or you move your body in a certain position, like you could easily snap your shit up, so to speak, right? You could tear something, hurt something. And I've had multiple injuries over the years from pushing myself to failure like that. And most people who do have got the injuries to show for it. I mean, there's probably a few unicorns out there who say, oh, I've been training high intensity, repping out to failure and beyond for 30 years and I've never had an acre of pain or anything. And if that's the case, then more power to them. But more often than not, when I talk to people who do high intensity training and really push those limits, they've got the injuries to show for it. The blown out rotator cuffs, the pec strains or tears, torn biceps or whatever, the knee and the hip problems and the back's thrown out and the herniated discs and whatever injuries, right? The injuries usually come along with that kind of training. So I'm more of a fan of, hey, let's not just drain the tank in that one all-out set. How about we do 2 or 3 sets, just training to failure or maybe a rep shy of failure so that we can still maximize muscle stimulation, get more total volume done, but reduce the risk of injury. And my definition of failure, I should share this as well. It's the point at which you can't perform another repetition with good form, not the point at which you can't move the weight at all. So let's use a prime example of this would be like a bicep curl. If you're doing strict bicep curls, you could get to the point where you can't perform another strict curl. But then if you start swinging and heaving, you'll be able to complete a few extra reps. Now, in the case of a smaller exercise like bicep curls, the risk of injury is pretty low in that case. But with a bench press or a squat or a deadlift or something like that, the risk of injury goes up quite high. Like if you hit the point in the bench press and you're struggling, and then next thing you know, you start cheating and you lift your ass off the bench and you arch your back and, try and do whatever you can to just move that weight, you really could put yourself in a lot of risk of injury. And there's been more torn pecs and blown out shoulders from trying to bench too heavy than probably any other exercise. Same with a squat. Like, first off, few people got the gusto and the gumption to be able to rep to failure in the squat, right? It's such a brutally hard exercise. But if you do, if you're one of those, intensity nuts that you can really rep to failure in the squat and beyond, again, the risk of injury is huge, because when you're pushing that absolute limit and you're grinding out that last rep where, the weight is not budging and you're still straining and struggling, it's so easy to blow something. Like you could, blow a disc in your back, your knees, your hips. There's a lot of stuff that could go wrong. So I'm not a fan of pushing that pure, 100% intensity. I would like to scale it back a little bit and kind of live to lift another day. So it's looking at the long term versus the short term potential. But as far as push-pull legs, that's another part of your question. There's nothing wrong with a push-pull leg split. That's one of my favorite splits. If that's what you fancy, then certainly do so. But that's my opinion. Anyway, it's not really a question. You just asked my opinion. So there. GS93, is lighter weights with higher reps better for building muscle? Not necessarily, no. You need a combination of heavy weight and lighter weight. Muscle building, it's kind of a unique thing because it's not like a one size fits all set and rep pattern. In fact, if we were to put it on a chart, like we have, like, look at it as a triangle. In one area of the triangle, let's just say the top, you've got your aerobic energy system. And then in the other one, you got your max power system. And then in the other one, you got more of your lactate system, if you will, right? So aerobic, power, ATP, and lactate. With strength training and hypertrophy, it's kind of in the lactate power phase. And it's not like one or the other. Like if you're training for powerlifting, obviously you need that heavyweight low reps, because that's exactly what powerlifting is, or Olympic lifting or anything like that. It's the heavyweight low reps, and ultimately the competition is a 1 rep max, right? Who can do the most for a single rep? Bodybuilding is not that. You don't need to lift a 1 rep max, but it's not at the other extreme either, where it's long distance endurance, unless it's just done for cardio as a supplementary exercise to burn body fat. But you're not talking about burning body fat, you're talking about building muscle. From the training, in terms of the weight training, you need to be in this range where it's higher repetitions, but also cycling in some lower repetitions. So it's like you could go through phases of doing 10 to 15 repetitions, and then you could go through other phases of doing, say, like 5 to 10 repetitions. And somewhere in that range, say like between 5 to 15, is usually like the sweet spot for most people when it comes to hypertrophy. Now, certain exercises are more geared to the lower rep range. You know, your heavy squats and your deadlifts and things like that, they tend to be work well in the lower rep range. And then some of the isolation exercises work better in the higher rep range. But generally speaking, you can kind of broad categorize most strength training exercises for hypertrophy, which hypertrophy is just another word for muscle growth, in that 10 to 15 rep, 5 to 15 rep range. So there's kind of a broad gap there. And 10 would be kind of like the sweet spot in the middle. That's why you see so many programs say like 3 sets of 10. I mean, I know it sounds so basic, but it's a good rule of thumb. So like for someone starting off, 3 sets of 10 is a great place to start. Now, as you start getting into the workouts and learning your body better, then you can experiment. Hey, maybe I'll try bumping it up to, 15 reps and see how my body responds. Or maybe I'll go a little heavier and drop it down to 5 reps, see how my body responds. And you can kind of manipulate it within those ranges. But most bodybuilders and people who are training for hypertrophy are in that 5 to 15 repetition range most of the time. Now, of course, there's always going to be exceptions to the rule, but that's a general rule of thumb. So it's not always just lightweight high reps. You need a combination of both. And it's going to vary depending on the exercises. I actually wrote a blog post that went into more detail, like outlining exercises that work better for power moves, exercises that work better for mid-range repetitions, and exercises that work better for higher repetitions. I think if you do a Google search, or even just go to my blog, leehayward.com, how many reps to build muscle? Like if you search, even if you did a Google search for Lee Hayward, how many reps to build muscle, you should be able to find that. It's an old post, but it should pop up there in the search. Okay, what else we got there? And what I'll do as well is when this video is posted up and the timestamps and everything else with the replay, I'll post the link to it below this question. So for the benefit of anybody watching this on a replay, I will have that link posted there in the future. All right, next question. How can I do progressive overload with a particular dumbbells which I have with me at my home? How can I do progressive overload with a particular dumbbells which I have with me at home? Well, you just increase the weight. Now, if you are dumbbells, if you literally just have one solid set of dumbbells and you can't add weight, you're not adjustable, or you don't have multiple sets, then the only way you can really do progressive overload is to increase the volume, either increase the repetitions or increase the number of sets. From a practical point of view, I mean, like, yes, you can do that. You can train with your dumbbells at home and you can add reps, add sets, all that. But if you're serious about building muscle, you've got to do what other people who are serious about building muscle and who have built muscle have done. Virtually everybody who's serious about building muscle goes to the gym. So I would strongly suggest joining a gym. And if you can't join a gym for whatever reason, then look into getting some more gym equipment. I mean, you need one or the other. You either need a well-equipped home gym with the proper stuff so you can train in a progressive overload fashion and hit all your major muscle groups from a variety of exercises and not neglect anything. Or you need to have access to a proper, public gym. The public gym, in my opinion, would be the best choice because you got high quality equipment, you got a good atmosphere, and that's virtually what most people do. Right? If you're looking at the greater scheme of things, like the 80-20, 80% of people who've built a decent physique did it by going to the gym. So if you want to build a good physique, you got to go to the gym, or you at least got to get yourself a good home gym, right? Trying to make it work with minimal equipment. I mean, you can still make progress. Don't get me wrong, but it's not going to be optimal, right? It's like, how can I type 40 words a minute with one hand tied behind my back? Like, yeah, it's possible, but it's not optimal, right? You want to optimize your situation so that you can maximize your progress and just kind of stack the deck in your favor and give yourself the best chance of making success. So my advice would be, instead of worrying about how can you maximize that set of dumbbells you have at home, look into how you can get more equipment, whether that's more home gym equipment or joining a gym. We have John joining in. Just want to say hi this week. Hi, John. John's a regular to the chat. Always nice to have you joining in. Appreciate the support. AJ joining in. Thanks for answering my question. Lee got another one if you don't mind. Go for it, my friend. It says, I'm struggling nowadays with my incline bench. I tend to use leg drive and sometimes cheat my reps. Any tips to improve the incline? Well, I would recommend not trying to cheat to the best of your ability anyway, using leg drive and cheating. I mean, yeah, you might, ike out another repetition, but that's not really building strength. One of the best things that I found when it comes to overcoming plateaus in a particular exercise is to literally take a break from that exercise and to do another variation that works the same muscle, but utilizing, a different mechanism. So, for example, if you're stuck with an incline barbell bench press, how about we try doing an incline dumbbell bench press, or maybe an incline bench press machine, maybe like a hammer strength machine or some other type of machine. Maybe you want to focus on some other movements instead, maybe like doing feet elevated push-ups, or practice doing dips or some other type of chest exercise. Like when you hit a plateau in a certain movement pattern, instead of constantly beating your head against the wall, like just I'm trying to get my bench up, can't get my bench up, I'm gonna try my bench again, and you're just like beating your head against the wall, like beating a dead horse. Change it. Like just totally change up the exercise and do another variation that's still working the same muscles, but now you're using different movement patterns and bringing in other stability. Like if, for example, if you switch from a barbell to dumbbells, now all of a sudden you're engaging more stabilizer muscles. It's providing some unique neuromuscular stimulation, and you can usually start to make some strength gains in that new movement pattern. So let's just say like you haven't done dumbbell bench press in weeks or months or however long, like you just haven't done it in a long time, but you're always doing the incline barbell bench. Well, you scrap the incline barbell bench and swap to the dumbbells. And now you'll have to kind of go through that whole learning curve all over again to get adjusted to the dumbbells and then to, balance and stabilize them. And then in that process, in that learning curve, you're going to make some good gains. Like when you start doing a new exercise or an exercise you haven't done in a while, you can usually get several weeks in a row of relatively easy gains. Like whatever you did last week, you should be able to beat it next week. You should be able to continue making some solid progress like that for several weeks in a row. And then once eventually that one hits a plateau, then we can switch it up and do something else. Again, maybe we'll choose another, maybe a hammer strength machine, and we'll work our way up on that one. And then once that one plateaus, and maybe we'll do some feet elevated push-ups, right? To target more of the upper chest, and then you work that one. And then once you go through a few different exercises, then you can come back to the one you were originally stuck on, in this case, the incline barbell bench press. And you may have to start off a bit lower than when you left off, right? Because it's a new exercise now, because you haven't done it in several weeks. So, I mean, you got to relearn those movement patterns for that particular exercise. So the first week, you might start off a bit lighter than you left off. The next week, you might be able to match what you did the previous time you were doing that exercise. And then maybe by the third week, you could hit a new personal best in that exercise. And then you can literally cycle through several different exercises like that. And this is a great way to keep your body, on its toes and to help continue that progress without hitting the plateaus and without just constantly beating your head against the wall, trying to, do the same thing over and over and over again and expect a different result. Right? Change up what you're doing and provide that unique muscle stimulation is an easier way to progress. And it's also more fun because, you're doing some different movements, so it's a lot more variety. And from a safety point of view, it's nice as well because you're changing up the movement. So you're not always doing the same repetitive movement pattern over and over again. You're changing it up. Even though it's similar, it's different. Like dumbbells feel different than a barbell. Machines feel different than free weights. So you're working the muscles from different positions, different angles, and it provides that unique stimulation and helps to alleviate some of the tension that you may get on the joints, tendons, and ligaments as well. So this is how I go about my training. Like I have my core structure workout that I do, but I'll change up the exercise variations. And I find that it really helps to keep things progressing. It also keeps the workouts fun and fresh. So hopefully that helps. Give it a shot and let me know. We have Neil joining in. Good morning, Lee. Congrats on your bicycle contest. Well, race. It was actually a race, but thank you. Appreciate it. Well done. Anyway, your thoughts on getting dry before a bodybuilding contest. I heard you get almost dehydrated and your skin is really dry. That's a loaded question because there's so many different variables and ways of going about it. But generally speaking, you want to temporarily cut back on your water consumption, maybe 24 hours thereabouts before show. And it's a very fine line, because what it is, the bodybuilders, what they're trying to achieve is you want to get rid of the water that's under the skin, that's blurring your definition. But at the same time, you got to be very careful, because muscle is 75% water. So if you dehydrate too much, you could actually flatten out your muscle tissue and reduce your ability to get a pump, and you're going to look just flat and depleted. It's a very fine line, and it's hard to get it right. You know, so I would err on the side of being conservative. And I'm going to be totally transparent. When I did my last bodybuilding competition, I did one back in last July. I made a comeback to the Masters bodybuilding and did classic physique. I won my division, and I was pleased, but I believe I over dehydrated myself. And part of the reason why I did that is because I had to make weight, because in classic physique, there's a height weight cutoff, and I had to suffer it out to make that height weight cutoff. And I didn't properly rehydrate myself afterwards. So I kind of kept the fluids to a minimum, thinking, well, I don't, because I was looking good and feeling good. I made the weight and everything else. And I said, all right, I want to keep this conditioning. And I tried to, and I didn't rehydrate enough afterwards. And I think that caused me to flatten out a bit too much during the contest. Like, I felt I could have probably been a bit fuller, maybe even look a bit leaner if I had more water in my system. Because when you have the water that's allowing your muscles to fill out, you get that full, hard look that we want. If you totally dehydrate yourself, you're not only losing the water under the skin, but you're deflating the muscle as well. And I think I borderline went into deflating the muscle a bit as well. And another reason I knew I was really dehydrated, because after the whole thing was over, my pee was really dark, which is not a good sign. You don't want really dark pee. So you got to be careful with it. What I would recommend is maybe like the night before the contest, just, cut back on your water, maybe even the day before. Cut your water intake in half, and then from the night before the contest onwards, just have some small sips of water, basically wash down your food with a little bit of water each meal, but don't go guzzling down a lot of water. So you want to reduce, but not eliminate. I think eliminating is a big mistake. And that's my advice. And again, I know it's kind of generic advice, but it's something that you really have to go through the whole experience through a bit of trial and error and see how your body responds. But it's a very fine line, that whole peaking before a contest. And the thing is, unless you're a competitive bodybuilder, you don't need to worry about that stuff, right? So, right, I mean, that's as far as like fitness is concerned, fat loss and everything else, like that is the top layer of what you would do. Like, you need to lay a foundation, you need to have the habits and lose the body fat and have a system in place and blah blah blah. Like, there's so many more levels before you even have to worry about water, right? Like, if we were building a house, like, you got to lay the foundation, you got to build the house, you got to put everything up, the walls and the windows and the roof and everything else. Like, water would be, what color are we going to paint the trim? Like, as far as the process of building a house, like, it's such a, it's a significant detail in itself, because it can have a big impact, but like, it's way down the line in terms of the whole fat loss process and looking your best process, right? I mean, it's, you got to be competing to even worry about that. And another thing I should mention as well, if you're not lean enough, like well into the single digits, cutting water is not going to do diddly squat. Like, I've seen guys before still have a roll of fat hanging over their belt, and they think, well, I'm just going to cut my water. I'm holding water. I got this roll of water right here over my belt, or I got this roll of water here in my lower back. Like, that's not a roll of water. You don't have rolls of water. If it's rolls and it's pudgy and you can pinch an inch and all that, that's not water. That's fat, right? You're not going to lose. You can't dehydrate fat, unfortunately. All right. So you got to get super lean. Like, you got to be lean, dehydrated, thin, not dehydrated. You got lean, visible definition, thin skin, definition and separation all around before water manipulation will even have an impact, right? That's another thing I see a big mistake, is people who are still got 10 plus pounds of body fat to lose are worried about water manipulation. I say, it ain't going to do diddly squat, right? Lose the fat first, and then the water may have an impact. Anyway, Moving on. John Y. Hello, Lee. What are your thoughts on B complex supplements? I've been noticing more alertness, energy in the morning. Would it be bad if I took another pill with lunch than the 1 pill a day recommended dose? Great question. I am a huge fan of B vitamin supplements, and the B complex is basically all the major B vitamins in a complex. And I personally take a B complex supplement. And you know what? Taking one a day is kind of like the minimum. And the good thing about the B vitamins, you could take more. If you want to take two a day, that's cool as well, because they're water soluble vitamins. And if you consume too much, like your body has more than it needs, as long as you're drinking adequate water, it'll use what it needs and flush out the rest. So, if you do consume any excess of those B vitamins, it'll go out in your urine. But by having the two B complex, like say one with breakfast and one with dinner, that's how I would space it out. Of course, throughout the day, so you get spaced out ratios. I think you would be maximizing the benefits there. And there's so many health benefits from all the different B vitamins. Like we can break it down and look into each one individually, but there's a lot of benefits. And when it comes to vitamin deficiencies, the B vitamins are top of the line for a lot of deficiencies or suboptimal levels. It's kind of a fine line, like what's considered a deficiency versus what's considered optimal, because by the RDA standards, as long as you have enough to prevent malnutrition and starving to death from because you're malnourished, as long as you have enough to stay alive, you're meeting the RDA. It's not necessarily enough to be optimized. It's enough to function and not have any body breaking down because of vitamin deficiencies, right? That's what the RDA was developed for. For those of you who don't know, like all this recommended daily allowance, it was developed back in war times. And when I say war times, I'm talking back in the World War times, as a nutritional guideline to prevent soldiers who were on the battlefield from starving to death from malnutrition. So they said, well, as long as they're meeting these bare minimum benchmarks, they're not going to starve to death from malnutrition. That's where the RDA came from. It wasn't designed for athletes and optimizing your health and physical performance. It was like, let's just keep these people alive. That's where it came from. So simply consuming the RDA, okay, you're staying alive, but it might not necessarily be optimal. So you can consume more than the RDA when it comes to a lot of vitamins and minerals. And I actually mentioned this on last week's chat, but I've got a guide. It's called the Vitamin and Mineral Intake for Athletes. And if you want a copy of it, head on over to my website at leehayward.com. And then in the side menu bar there, I think it's there. It should be. Let me double check before I go pointing people to the wrong direction here. Let me double check. I hate it when I screw up like that. I think it's on my website. Let me just see if it is. Yes, it is. Okay. Go to leehayward.com. On the right-hand menu bar, if you're on a laptop or computer, it'll be in the right-hand menu bar. If you're on a mobile device, just keep scrolling down, because the way it is on a mobile device, instead of having it side by side, they got it stacked on top of each other. It's a bit different. But scroll down, and there's a link there where it says free download, Vitamin and Mineral Intake PDF. Click on that link, and you'll be able to download it. And for the heck of for everybody in the video chat, I'm going to give you the direct link where you can just click on it now. So I will be typing this into the chat. You'll see that there's the link to the Vitamin and Mineral Intake Guide. And that covers all the major vitamins and minerals, their function in the body, blah, 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 blah. So it's a great guide. And it covers optimal levels, not just RDA survival levels. All right. But bottom line, that was a long-winded answer to a question. But yes, you can take two B complexes a day. All right. Where was I to? I lost my place in the chat. That was from John. Okay, got John's done. Alberto. Hi, Lee. The kids. The kids. You very much for. I think he's saying thank you. Very much for these live video chats. You're welcome. Glad you appreciate them. Thoughts about hybrid athletes. I'm going to run a half marathon in a year, but I don't have time for 2 workouts a day and don't want to lose weight. All right, I can kind of relate to this because I am a hybrid athlete, if you want to use that term. I actually made a post on Facebook. If you're friends with me on Facebook, you've probably seen this post because it got a lot of likes and comments and everything else. But I just kind of did a throwback Thursday, if you will, recap. That was my intentions of the post. Was last year I made the comeback to masters bodybuilding by competing in classic physique, and I did quite well with that. I was very happy with that, so I competed on the bodybuilding stage. Just 2 weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago. Yes, yeah, literally two weeks ago. I did a bicycle race and I won my division. I did it's called the Pooch Cove Classic. It's a local bicycle race, and I did the men's category B division. There's 3 categories. There's A, B, C. A is like the top level riders, B is the middle riders, and C is a novice rider. So I was in the B category. And I won my division. I won the B category in a bicycle race. So, I mean, and won it by a darn good margin, too. I was quite happy with that. So, went from winning bodybuilding last year to winning a cycling race this year. So, I mean, 2 chalk and cheese sports, right? Totally different spectrum. So, I can kind of relate to the hybrid athlete thing. And you can prioritize whatever it is you want to. Now, from a practical point of view, like, and taking things to the extreme levels, like, nobody's going to be a bodybuilder and like a Mr. Olympia level bodybuilder and Tour de France level cyclist. Like, you can't combine that, but you can combine, hey, I'm pretty good on the local level in both. Like, you can be good enough in both. So when it comes to hybrid athletes, you're making some sacrifices in both areas. Like, you're not genetically one or the other. That's usually the way it is for unless you're looking at like comparing endurance sports and power sports together. Like, someone could be a really good power lifter and a really good bodybuilder because they're 2 power sports, or someone could be a really good runner and a really good cyclist because they're 2 endurance sports. But when you're combining chalk and cheese, endurance and power, like, no, you're not going to be Mr. Olympia and you're not going to be Tour de France. Like, Lance Armstrong doesn't look like Jay Cutler and vice versa. And Jay Cutler is not going to win the Tour de France, and Lance Armstrong's not going to win the Mr. Olympia, regardless of what they do. Right? Yeah, I'm just using those because they're popular names. But bottom line, you can't have the best of both worlds, right? You got to kind of pick and choose. But you can be good enough and still enjoy yourself at a lower level in both. And that's what I'm doing, right? I enjoy getting out riding my bike because I just love the fun of it and the challenge and the adventure. And I still love weight training. So I'm doing both. But I know I'm not going to be the best bodybuilder in the world, nor am I going to be the best cyclist in the world, right? There's a compromise in between. And that's what you got to realize anytime you go combining different types of sports and activities like that. I mean, obviously you can still hit personal records, but, for ultimate potential, it ain't going to happen. You got to pick one or the other, and you got to have the genetics for one or the other. Now, as far as the training goes, you got to look at it from a big picture perspective as well and realize, like, the big one is recovery. And when it comes to recovery from any type of training, think of it like you've got 100% recovery. You've got 100, and that's for everything. It's not like you got 100% to dedicate to weight training and 100% to dedicate to running. You got 100% total, and you got to divvy up that 100% between your weight training and your running and whatever other sports and activities you're doing as well. So that's where it can get tricky, is because you got to balance that out. So if you're going to prioritize more running, you're going to have to scale back on the weight training in order to accommodate the running. Vice versa, if you want to spend more time doing the weight training, you'd have to scale back on the running to accommodate it. And in my case, like last year when I was getting ready for the bodybuilding competition, I was prioritizing the weight training and bodybuilding training. Like, that was my main priority. And then cycling was only like an aftermath, if you will. It was a fat burning supplement. I would go cycling just for fat burning cardio, but I wasn't pushing no limits. I wasn't testing my VO2 max or hitting FTP numbers and all this kind of stuff. I was literally going through the motions and using it as a fat burning tool to help with the bodybuilding. Bodybuilding and the weight training was priority. The cycling and the cardio was secondary. Now, when I won the bicycle race, it was the opposite. Cycling was the priority. Weight training was the supplementary. So I was doing the weight training to help balance out and prevent any imbalances and overuse injuries. Because anytime when you do repetitive movements like cycling or running or whatever, certain muscles and certain body parts get a lot of work. Others don't get any work. So I was doing weight training to kind of balance things out, strengthen my core, improve my upper back and neck and mobility and flexibility, and just strengthen the weak links. But it wasn't priority. I wasn't pushing high intensity in the gym. I was pushing high intensity on the bike. So I switched the tables in terms of priority. So that's what you got to do. You got to like prioritize what's important now. So if your goal is to run the marathon, well, you said it's in a year, so you're still a bit far away. But as you get closer and closer and start peaking for that marathon and going through your training phase, that's obviously going to take more and more of the priority, and the weight training is going to be more of supplementing the running training, if that makes sense. Like it's not like you can dedicate 100% effort to both. You have to prioritize. But in the meantime, you can kind of do a half and half, if you will, right? Like half weight training, half running training. And a simple way to do this, and this is what I usually recommend for most of my coaching students or most people who are just like trying to lose weight, get in shape, and improve their overall health and fitness, and they're not really athletes, is just let's do weight training one day and cardio the next. Weight training one day and cardio the next. So you can get the best of both worlds, and it's a very complementary form of training because you're providing unique muscle stimulation, unique stresses on the body from each form of training. And the weight training can serve as recovery from the cardio, and then the cardio can actually serve as recovery from the weight training. So it's very complementary in that sense. And for most of my coaching students who are going through like the Muscle After 40 blueprint, especially those who are, in that, I just want to get in better shape, lose the gut, live a long, healthy life, and feel good and confident in my own skin. Like if that's the main goal, this is a great way to go about it. Weight training one day, cardio the next, and just alternate them day for day. But as you get closer to any specific goal, as like you mentioned, the marathon, obviously that's going to gradually take bigger and bigger priorities, and the weight training is going to have to take less and less priority. But don't eliminate, right? Keep both in there, right? I want you to do that because the weight training can be very therapeutic and to help minimize injury from running, because you're going to strengthen the weak links in areas that are not getting hit when you're running, and help to keep your mobility and your core strength and all that kind of stuff good during the whole process. All right, moving on. Alberto saying thank you and you're welcome. Andre is saying, Lee, I have a lifelong goal of bench pressing 315. However, I'm stuck at 225. Do you have any suggestions to reach my goal? I weigh only 175 pounds. Do I need to gain weight to bench heavier? Maybe, maybe not. All right. I kind of addressed this a little bit earlier in the topic of, we had one of the guys was stuck in an incline bench press, and the same strategies that I mentioned for increasing your incline bench press would work for increasing your flat bench press. So if you're just joining the chat and you haven't heard that one, go back and listen to the replay, right? I don't want to do a whole repeat of the same topic again. So that was one of the earlier questions. But I'm going to address some specific things that you brought up there in your question right here. Do you need to gain weight to bench heavier? That's one way to bench heavier. I mean, generally speaking, a bigger muscle is a stronger muscle. The more weight you have on, quality weight, the stronger you're going to be. And I know when powerlifters are bulking up or adding mass, whatever word you want to use, when powerlifters are training to get bigger, they generally, as they get bigger, they get stronger. And a common rule that I hear, common trend, if you will, is for every 5 pounds of body weight you gain, you'll probably put 10 pounds on your bench, right? That's kind of a average for some people. Now, some may be higher, some may be lower, but generally speaking, you gain 5 pounds of body weight, you put 10 pounds on your bench. That's a general rule of thumb for powerlifting. So if you want to get stronger, then getting bigger will certainly help with that. Now, if that's part of your goal, again, filling out your frame with muscular body weight and getting bigger, then hey, by all means do that. But if your goal is to I want to kind of stay as lean as I can and still get stronger at the same time, that gets a bit more tricky. And quite honestly, in effort to stay as lean as you can and keep your body weight down, you're going to be minimizing your maximum strength gains because you're not achieving that the strength gains that come from simply gaining weight and gaining size to your frame, right? So, I mean, you're going to not get that, and you really have to focus on gaining strength elsewhere. So again, it'd be nice if we could have a back and forth conversation so I could see like what's your goals and what's your long-term plans and everything else. But if your goal is to fill out your frame and to bulk up, then that would certainly help in your quest for a bigger bench press. Right. Another thing I'd like to know too, like how long have you been training for and everything else? I mean, like quite honestly, like 225 is quite respectable. I mean, that's more than your body weight. And I mean, depending on where you are in your fitness journey, like that may be very respectable. And you may be well on your way to getting to that 315. Like 315 is a very respectable bench press. I know when you're watching YouTube and you're seeing all the fitness influencers and stuff like that, they kind of make it seem like, oh, everybody benches 315, right? Nothing to it. But like from a real world, practical, average Joe point of view, like 315 is freaking advanced. Like you're up there if you're benching 300 plus pounds. And in fact, I remember hearing some statistics or general rules of thumb in terms of weight to strength and stuff. And they say like if you're benching 300, squatting 400, and deadlifting 500, or somewhere in those ballpark, you're at the advanced level. You are an advanced lifter doing that. Now I know like you watch YouTube videos and see everybody on Instagram and stuff like that, and you think, well, oh, everybody who lifts weights is doing that. No, they're not. Right? That is far from the truth. I've even had people reach out to me like for coaching and stuff like that and say, well, I'm afraid to go to the gym because everybody at the gym looks in amazing shape. And I'm like, no, what gym have you been to lately? Like most of the people that you see at a typical gym, like unless you've seen them at the gym, you wouldn't even know they worked out, because like it's the same people you see out in public, like they're the same people you see at the gym for the most part. Now, of course, there's going to be, the odd athlete or bodybuilder or someone like that who's really in good shape. But the average person, like 80%, they're just regular folks who are in there trying to lose weight, get in shape, and make some self-improvement. They're far from elite athletes or advanced or anything like that. They're just kind of going through the motions. So the fact that you're already benching 225, like that puts you well above average right there, right? When you're looking at real world numbers. In fact, anybody who's benching their body weight, that puts you above average in terms of real world numbers. So sometimes we got to give credit where credit is due. And I mean, obviously you're certainly making some good progress there, but if you want to bust past those plateaus, go back and check out the answer that I gave for the gentleman who wanted to increase his incline bench. The same strategies would certainly apply there for improving your flat bench. And if you want another one, like we can elaborate on this even more. Improving your technique is another big one. And one program that I have that really focuses on this along with a proven training structure is the Blast Your Bench program. I mean, that's a program that I launched way back in the early, actually, I launched it back in the late 90s, back in the the pioneer days of the internet. And it was very popular throughout the early 2000s. But the way the Blast Your Bench program works is, one, it prioritizes the bench press, really nails down bench press technique. So it helps to solidify that. And then because we're prioritizing it and we're doing multiple bench press workouts with varying levels of intensity, like some days are high intensity days, some days are lighter weight, higher repetition days. It's got a structured program in there, but it really nails down proper technique. Because I'd say with the Blast Your Bench program, the gains that most people make, 50% of the gains come from improving their lifting technique and improving their motor recruitment, being able to fire the muscles that they need to fire at the right times and in the right order to power up maximum weight. And then the other 50% is actual through muscular strength gains. So it's a very powerful program for improving your technique as well as your strength. So it's an old school program, but it works. So if you want, just blastyourbench.com. It's still there. That's the original website from back in the day. Check it out. All right, let's move on. Where else we got there? AJ. Okay, I think someone was responding there. Nicholas says, your full body workout, how many days a week? I personally train 3 days a week. That's my general rule of thumb. 3 weight training workouts per week when I'm doing full body. So every other day, right? Take a day of rest in between. So you give each muscle group a full day of rest between each workout. Okay, what else we got there? Watch me do stuff. Gotta love the username. Watch me do stuff. It says I weigh 175 pounds and no six pack, but I'm ripped everywhere else. Um, that's that's actually quite common, because with a lot of guys, you can be lean in the arms, lean in the shoulders, lean in the legs, and still have a layer of stubborn belly fat. The belly is kind of like the last to go for most guys. For women, it's usually the other way around, and meaning that they can get lean in the upper body and then still be soft in the lower body. Right? I've seen that before, where sometimes like female fitness competitors and figure and bodybuilders and stuff like that, especially when they're in their contest prep. Sometimes it looks like two different physiques connected at the waist, because from the waist up, they could be like six-pack abs and shredded and defined, and then from the waist down, they could still have softness and cellulite. Right? I know, like it's literally it could be that big of a contrast. And I've also seen it with guys sometimes. Like I remember I was coaching a guy a few years back, helping him get ready for one of our local provincial bodybuilding shows, and like year round, like his legs were shredded. Like any day of the year, he could just like flex his quads, and he had crisscross striations and separation going through his quads. Like there was zero fat on his quadriceps, like just shredded year round. But then when he lifted up his shirt, he had a roll of belly fat hanging over. So like some people just don't store fat in certain areas, but the belly, the spare tire, the gut, love handles, whatever you want to call it, that tends to be the magnet for stubborn body fat for most guys, and it's usually the last to go. So all you have to do is just keep focusing on fat loss, and you'll start to tap into that stubborn body fat. Like there's no secret to losing belly fat versus any other fat, but you have to be in a fat loss state. You have to be in a calorie deficit and training for fat loss, and not getting hung up on, oh, well, my arms are lean, my legs are lean, I don't need to lose any fat, I only need to lose it off my belly. No, you just keep going through the process, and then you will tap into losing it from where you have it. Right? It's like if you cut your finger, you don't say, "Oh my goodness, I'm losing finger blood." It's just blood, because the blood that comes out of your finger, it's not just coming out of your finger. I mean, it's circulating throughout your whole body. So, right, I mean, like you could literally drain your body dry if you if you let it bleed long enough. Same when it comes to body fat. Like, okay, granted, it's being the stubborn fat is held up in the midsection. But as long as you're in a fat loss phase and you're in a calorie deficit and training for fat loss, you'll tap into burning it where your body has it, right? You'll lose it from where you need it as long as you keep dieting long enough. And that's the secret to fat loss. It's not dieting harder, it's dieting longer. That's the secret. Like once you've achieved the calorie deficit, that's it. Like it's not like, oh, now I've got I'm in a slight deficit. Well, I'm going to go into a massive deficit, or I'm going to go on some crazy intermittent fasting protocol, or I'm going to cut this and cut that, and I'm going to go keto. I'm going to go, like, once you're in a freaking deficit, you're in a deficit. Like, that's it. Then it's just stay in a deficit long enough and consistently enough to let it work for you. Because if you try and go to the extremes, which some people do when they get impatient, they think, well, if a little bit of diet and a little bit of exercise is good, then I'm going to do a shit ton of exercise and I'm going to starve myself and lose fat even faster. No, because you can't sustain it. It's not enjoyable once you push it to that limit. And then that just sets you up for a big old, binge yo-yo rebound. So once you're in a calorie deficit, the secret to fat loss is to stay in that deficit and just let it work for you. And again, if you want some help with it, feel free to reach out to me. Like that applies for anything we've been talking about here. I mean, if you have any questions or you want some help with anything, feel free to email me, leeh@leehayward.com. Got my email address down in the description below, right below here in the video. Feel free to reach out to me if there's anything that you want to elaborate on more that we've talked about, or if you do have any questions that I didn't discuss, feel free to reach out to me and we can have a chat through email. We got QA saying, it's been a while, Lee, since I watched your videos. Gosh, I started watching your videos back in 2010. I learned so much. Awesome. I'm glad to have you back. Welcome back. I'm glad you enjoy the videos. We have Billy. Big Lee, you're a savage beast. Keep up the great work and motivation. Much appreciated. I'm not going to go into the whole savage beast story, but that's an old one. From back in the early 2000s or mid 2000s, somewhere around there. Yeah. Steve Gibson's joining in and says, any tips for a psychological block? I get really dizzy once in the gym squatting. Now I feel like it's going to happen every time I go. You've got really dizzy once in the gym from squatting. Well, the squat's a very demanding exercise, and depending on your fueling, hydration, a lot of different variables, yeah, you could potentially get dizzy, especially if you go into an oxygen debt, or you go into low blood sugar, or you're dehydrated, or electrolyte imbalance. I mean, a lot of things could happen because, it's a big exercise. You're pushing the limits. What I would recommend, one, make sure that you're fueled and hydrated properly before your workouts. All right, like don't go trying to do fasted workouts or anything like that. Like make sure you got a meal in you a couple hours beforehand so you got some energy to run on. Make sure that you're well hydrated. Keep your sodium intake high. A lot of people, are afraid of eating salt because they've been brainwashed and thinking salt's the bad guy. Like you need salt, you need sodium. It's one of the key electrolytes. And if you don't have adequate sodium in your system, you're not going to get a pump. Your body's not going to shuttle the water into the cells like it needs to. Like sodium is essential. You need sodium, right? And as long as you're drinking adequate water, your body will use what it needs and flush out any of the excess. So, for hard working athletes and people who are in the gym training, you're not going to consume too much sodium. Right? The fear is consuming too little, not too much. So that's a big one. And another one that I would highly recommend is when you do your next squat workout, one, don't push it so darn hard. Like it's okay to stop a rep or two shy of failure. Like don't feel like you got to go balls to the wall and train to failure and beyond. Like it's okay to end the set and rack the weight on your own without killing yourself. So purposely take a couple easy workouts. And if you want to make it feel like you're getting more muscle stimulation from it, well, hey, instead of doing, say, 3 sets to failure, how about you do 5 sets stopping short of failure? So just add in some extra sets so you're still getting the same total volume, but you're not pushing yourself to failure and you're able to complete those repetitions with good form. And I think that will help you. So give yourself permission to do a couple easy squat workouts to just get over that, mental block that you have, and let's see how your body responds. Now, with this being said, if you do try all the stuff that I just said, make sure that you're well fueled and hydrated and electrolyted and all that, and you're still getting dizzy in the gym, and this is kind of like a regular occurrence, it's not just a once in a blue moon type of thing that happened. If this is a regular occurrence, go to your doctor and get it checked out, right? If in doubt, get it checked out. But if it was just like something that happened once and it's never happened again, but you're afraid that it might, then you just kind of got to give yourself permission to do some easy workouts and then gradually build it back up again. And I think that'll help you to overcome it. All right, moving on. Geez, we've been an hour already. Like, it's crazy. Like, the fastest hour of my week is when I turn on the camera to do this live video chat. I swear to God, it's just like the hour just flies by. Somebody spins the clock faster when I'm doing these video chats. What else we got there? Tyler with crab at record prices per pound. Have you bought a new fish and dory? I haven't been keeping up with the crab prices, and no, I haven't got a new dory. So no plans to buy a dory anytime soon. What kind of exercises do you recommend for a full body workout 3 times a week? Go to my main channel after this is over. Head on over to the Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel, and there's some sample total body workouts there. There's one, it's a father and son workout that I shot with my dad. I think we did that a couple of years ago, but that's a total body workout. Another one is one that I did with my wife. It's a husband and wife workout. Like those are some sample total body workouts that I literally use myself. I mean, I follow that same structured program. I just change up the exercises, but I still use that same structure, right? I mean, I love the total body structure, and I'll explain why in those videos. But again, check those out. They're right on the main channel page. So I mean, just scroll down and you'll see like one is a father and son total body, and the other one's a husband and wife total body. So I incorporate my family into my workouts. Yeah, but those are what I would recommend. Steven saying thanks. Robert saying thanks. Emma's wanting tickets to the gun show. Gun shows. There we go. Gun shows. What else? Tickets are sold out now. And that's it. I actually covered all the video chat questions. All right. And we're just an hour and 5 minutes in there. Well, I'm going to get ready and clue it up. Hopefully you enjoyed the video chat. I enjoy doing them, as I've already mentioned. Like I say, it's the fastest hour of my week. And when time goes fast, it means you're having fun. So I am having fun. I do enjoy these. All right. So I will clue it up, and I will get the replay of this posted up with all the timestamps and all that good stuff. So if you do like going back and watching the replays, but you don't want to watch the whole show, but you want to pick and choose what questions you listen to, take advantage of those timestamp replays. And that applies for all the previous video chats. So in the playlist with all these chats that I've done for years, there's a gazillion of them in there now. Most of them, especially the recent ones within the last couple of years, all have timestamps. So you can literally just, hey, I can scroll through and pick and choose what questions and topics I want to listen to. So it's great if you're looking for something specific and not just wanting to have a big old long tea with Lee for an hour. All right, guys, I'm going to clue it up. Have yourself a great one, and I will talk to you same time, same place next week. Take care. Over and out.